Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Igor, and I have Alfonso with me today. So, hi, Alfonso. How are you?
Hi, Igor. I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing very, very good. I'm very glad to be here as well. And first of all, I welcome everyone who joined this session. I really look forward to a very engaging presentation.
Great to hear. Perfect. Well, Alfonso, if you could so kindly introduce yourself and also the topic that you're going to be discussing here today with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll keep it short because I think this session is more about what you can learn as opposed to what you can learn about me. But my name is Alfonso. I'm an entrepreneur. I've built several businesses. I also exited successfully one business. And today's session will be about something which is really important and a lot of people forget sometimes, which is how to develop really a business mindset and something that I think all of us have, which is fear of failure. So I will discuss those two topics and hope you guys enjoy it.
Great, for sure.
Very well. I hope you guys can see my screen.
So not at the moment, no. I think it's going to appear in a second. There we go. There we have it. Yeah. So please tell us, Alfonso, about the slide here. So developing a strong business mindset. You know, what does that mean for you, and why did you want to discuss this topic with us here today?
Well, I think it's the most important topic when you start a business. You always have these doubts, these fears, and mindset is not something static. It's something you build through your life, right? And that applies both to your business, but also to your personal life, even with your relationships. Mindset is the most important thing, and where everyone starts from. A mindset, a positive mindset, means usually a successful life. It goes hand in hand. So I wanted to discuss that, for me, what's the most important topic in business and also in life. So that's why I chose this topic. Thank you for your question.
Great to hear. Okay, so I'm curious to hear what the slide might mean, where you are and where you want to be. Can you share us the story behind the slide? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we all live some kind of reality. We all live our current lives, but sometimes we might think there is more to life than what we're currently living. There might be some dreams that you want to follow, or that dream life that you always that you dreamed of and you're working towards. And that could be two different realities, but actually there are two different realities that might be closer than one might think. So I wanted to start by actually asking you a question or giving you some insight. Imagine you were at the edge of a cliff, like this young man is on the picture. And on the other side of that cliff is that life which you always dreamed. Let's talk about business, maybe that project you always want to start. So imagine you could jump into that reality, into that life you always dreamed. What do we all experience when it comes to following our dreams, following our goals?
Okay.
Would you actually jump and follow your dreams? Let's give you an example. Let's say you have a good paying job, or a job where you feel valued. You have some friends. Let's say you're living in a country, you have some friends and family, and you're pretty happy with your life as it is, right? I'm not going to say a job is bad. But then on the other side, you see that, okay, there is those goals you want to achieve. Would you actually take the risk and jump? Would you actually take the risk and follow your goals, or would you actually stay, living the reality that you have?
So perhaps there is a story behind this, Alfonso. Is that right? Did you go through this kind of moment yourself when you went outside of your comfort zone? Could you just tell us a little bit about that, just to understand?
I did, and this slide basically means that we all face fears, but actually it is a very normal thing to fear. I myself had the same situation. I had a good job. I freshly graduated from university, 21 years old, and I got this very good job at a consulting firm. And I always thought there was more to it, right? So I got a call one day from my dear friend, and he asked me to join him in a journey to build a business together and try to grow something, create value, and build something very interesting. When I first heard that, I had a lot of fear. I was very scared. I mean, I was 21 years old, no experience, no knowledge. I thought I could not do it. And it is very normal to feel that way. And I'm sure many of you who want to start a business, you have the same situation where you are afraid to take that risk, or you're afraid to follow your goals. And I was in the same situation back then. You fear success because you don't know what success means. You fear the unknown because obviously you don't know what it is, and that's how everything starts. But what happened is actually I decided to take the leap of faith. So I'm not going to say I jumped from one cliff to the other because that is a bit risky. But what I did is I hiked down the mountain and I joined my friend on the other side to really build something interesting together.
That's an interesting analogy, to hike down and then climb up again. Okay, that's great. Alfonso, so there is a question in. So somebody's asking. So was that decision a good step for you in your career, in your life, or was it kind of, did it lead to some trouble for you? Following your heart and following your friend into the new venture that you did.
Well, that's a very great question. And I think every decision we take is always a positive one. You can take it in a negative way, but I always try to think that any decision you make will lead to something positive, because you can take it in a positive way. In my personal situation, absolutely yes, it was a great decision, not only because in the end the business actually had some success, but more about the experience that I had and that I went through in that journey. And for example, right, I started this business and then I joined another company. And in that company, actually, I applied all my knowledge that I did when I was doing this entrepreneurial experience, and I applied it in a business. So I applied it in my business, in a personal life, and I think it was a great decision. But I think every decision you make is positive if you want to make it, if you want to take it that way. And actually, the goal of this session, I introduced it previously before. But the goal of this session is not only to give you some practical advice on what you can do to overcome your fear, but it is more also to open your mind and help you understand that anyone can do it. If you set your mind in the right direction, if you have a vision, if you work towards your plan, everyone can really do it. I mean, I'm not smarter than anyone, but I am a very hardworking person, and in the end, it all works out. So hopefully this session will really open your mind and inspire you to pursue that life that you want.
Great. And I just want to jump in, guys, and say that please do comment. Text your questions on YouTube, so that you can ask Alfonso anything that you would like to. Right. So obviously, Alfonso, you followed through and you went on this journey with your friend, and you decide to build this business. But what are the things that are actually involved with that? So what are the mind things, because obviously mind is so important, and it's so difficult to sometimes take that step. So what are those key components, and where should a person start?
Well, I'll definitely discuss that later on in the presentation, but what I always think is, if your heart tells you to do something, please go ahead and do it, because you will never regret something that you want to do, but you will always regret something that you wanted to do but you didn't do it. So the first thing that comes to your mind is, you have doubts. You don't know where to start from. So what I always say is, start with what you can control. Start with that very simple step today, which you can do, that will help you towards your long-term goal. So we started a marketing agency. We were helping businesses sell in Europe in a very summarized way. And I had no idea of e-commerce. I must be honest with you. So the first thing I did is learn about e-commerce, learn about marketing,
Okay.
learn about how to run ad campaigns. So that's, and in terms of mindset, it is always a process. It is always a process in keep going. It is always a process of having a clear vision and pursuing your goals, even if things don't go as well. So you need to be, I think you shouldn't be completely knowledgeable about everything when you start a business, because it is really a journey of personal improvement and personal growth.
Understood. Okay, that's great. So obviously you didn't understand everything, but you were researching the subject, and then what happens next? How do you compute your mind to actually take you to the next step? What do you have to have in your mind to be able to take that step into the abyss, into the unknown?
You're asking me very difficult questions, Igor, but absolutely yes, I'll try to cover everything I can. For me, as a first step, what I would always try to do is find who you are, find who you want to be, find the person you want to be, and obviously the business you want to create. So you need to really have a clear, I call it why, a clear why. You need to have a real purpose behind what you do. And why is it so important to have a purpose? Well, because in business, what you're doing is actually your problem solving. That means you always have problems. You have problems for clients, but you also have problems for your own business. Now, if you have a clear vision and a clear purpose, you will work through those challenges. You will persevere even in the challenging times. So this slide talks about what is your vision of the future. That is a question I would ask everyone in this audience is, have you thought about the person you want to become? Have you thought about what is your goal in life? Is it just to make money? A lot of people want to start a business because they want to make money. In my personal experience, I wanted to start a business because I want to get to a financial freedom. I want to be free. I want to be free of time, location. I want to obviously be financially free. So that was my why. And then if you dig deeper, you find even more things. So why do you want to have financial freedom? Well, maybe it is because you thought that you were always controlled in a sense since you're young. You always studied what teachers wanted you to study. You always worked the things that you were told maybe by your parents that you wanted to work on. And then you're like, okay, but actually, do I really want to do these things, or do I want to focus on what I want? So that is why the why is really, really important, and you can dig much deeper always. So that's it.
Okay.
And I really prompt the audience to ask those questions. Why do you want to start a business? Is it even a good idea for you to start a business? Maybe not. What's the purpose behind your goal? And who do you want to become? It always comes down to the person you want to become.
So would you say that for some people, starting the business is not the right answer? Would you say that for some people, actually being employed in a job would be the correct path forward? And if that's the case, what sort of things should you watch out when you make that decision to go ahead into your own entrepreneurship?
Okay, good. Yeah, I think everyone is different. We're all different. Maybe even the goal of someone who wants to start a business is completely different to the goal of someone else who wants to start a business. As I said, some people look for short-term benefits, which is completely acceptable. Some other people look for something else. They want to build really a service that is changing the world, or they want to build a product that is going to innovate in pharmaceutical industry, for example. So goals can really differ from person to person. Now, in terms of if you want to start a business or you want to keep a job, those are two distinct decisions. And I think, again, it really comes down to who you are. A business, as well as a job, has its negatives and its positives, if I want to talk it in a very short manner. Let's just use some general concepts, right? Usually, when you're working a job, you have more safety or implied safety. So you get your paycheck at the end of the month, and that obviously gives you a lot of security and also stability of mind, etc., and peace of mind. Whilst the business is different, you need to really work. You need to really find the way to get paid at the end of the month, or even during the month. So those are two different things. Maybe someone who's looking for more safety can choose the direction of a company whilst over a job. While someone who's looking for more freedom, more time, could invest more time into a business and then have this business scale to a point where they have financial freedom. So those are two different things, but it really depends on the person. And I absolutely think that some people are better suited for a job, and some other people are better suited for an entrepreneurial journey.
All right, interesting. One of the comments from the people in the chat. By the way, guys, please do chat with us. So feel
Yes,
free
please.
to send any questions you have. Was that in during the analogy that you were telling us, of Alfonso, where with a having yourself on one side of the canyon, and then the other person, your friend, being on the other side, and you having to climb down and then climb up again. Ludmila asked, why don't you just build a bridge, right? In the sense that, why wouldn't you kind of start to work towards um, going towards that life, the new life, the life on the other side of the canyon, the business life, but at the same time, actually maybe have a job, if I understood it correctly, maybe a part-time job, so kind of like ease your way into entrepreneurship. What are your thoughts on that? Would that be a good strategy to have for life?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and again, I think it really depends on each person's situation and their goals. You can either really take the leap of faith and leave your whole life behind, or really transition into that life, right? And I think both are very suitable ways to approach it. There are, again, positives and downsides to each option. I guess the upside of transitioning is you can really build yourself and build your business more gradually as you're growing yourself, and that will help both you and also your business. Or you can say, I'm going all in, I'm investing everything I have into that business. And usually, and again, just in generic terms, when you invest fully into something, you cannot fail. And I'll talk about that later. You cannot fail if you never give up. But also, you cannot fail if you invest everything into an idea, into one of your goals. So sometimes it is a better idea to just focus on one thing. That's my general opinion. You focus on one thing, and if it doesn't work, you can always go back. So many people are worried if what if it doesn't work? But what if it does? And that life that you currently have, which maybe is not your ideal life, you can always go back to it if it doesn't work. But I think the people who, generally speaking, the people who really focus on one thing are the ones who, long term, they really build something which is unique. Very good question, Camila, right?
No, it was somebody else.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was Ludmila. But yeah, that's very, very
Ludmila, sorry.
interesting, Alfonso. Right. So you have to have that that vision. Coming back to the slides, because we kind of pivoted away. So you have to have a vision. Can you be a bit more specific of how you can actually build that vision, right? So I mean, it's great to say that, yeah, you should have a vision, but where do you start? As a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'll give my own experience, or just a practical example for people to really understand and relate to it. So if I want to build, again, a marketing agency, you focus on what you can do today to build that marketing agency in the future. So you focus, again, on the very simple steps that you can take today in order to make that goal achievable. Let's say instead you want to build a personal coaching business and you want to help people get fitter or stronger in the gym. Well, the first thing you can do is learn how to get fitter yourself. Maybe even grow your social media so you can make your first post on Instagram. You don't have to post 100 times. If you post one a day, then over 1 year, that's 365 posts that you're making. So focus on actionable steps that are going to, in some way or another, direct you towards that vision. You can go a little bit left, you can go a little bit right, but as long as you're sailing the ship in the right direction, you will always get to the destination, right? And that's why I say here that your vision is your compass. You don't need to follow it precisely, but you need to follow the direction. The direction is much more important than than something very specific, which might not work. So follow the direction and follow your vision.
Okay.
I wanted to reference as well quickly, because for me it's a book that really helped me to see what is possible, and it's called Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill said that anything the mind can conceive, it can also achieve. That means that the limits really are the ones that you set your mind to, because there are really no limits. Truly, there are no limits to what humans can achieve. I mean, look at where we are. We're connecting from many countries on a live stream. So this really shows that there is really no limits to the things that we can achieve. The limits are just the ones that you set your mind to. So I think that's a very, very good quote from a fantastic book.
That's great.
Good. All right. Now, okay, so let's say you have a vision. You have actionable steps. Now, how do you actually take action on those steps, and how do you build self-belief? Because a lot of us who start something new, again, we're scared, we don't know what to do. We need to build that confidence. And I think confidence is the single most important thing that you need in order to succeed in the long term. Now, self-belief doesn't come all at once. So I think someone in the chat was asking, how long does it take to overcome fear? Well, I think fear will always be there in our lives, right? It will never go away. What you can do is you can work towards being a more confident person in whatever aspect or industry, whatever things that you're doing. How do you build self-belief? Well, for me, it's very simple. You have an actionable plan. You take action on those on that plan, and then you also reward yourself for the small wins that you take on your journey. Taking back to the example of building a business, let's say again, a personal coaching business, just to say something. Well, you can reward yourself for, let's say, posting on Instagram every single day for 1 month, because that's an achievement. You don't need to, you reward yourself for posting for 2 years. You can really make things smaller and make your goals much more measurable in the short term, and then reward yourself and build that confidence as you go, because it doesn't come all at once. We might have lost Igor. Igor, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Okay.
I was just removed from the main frame for a moment. Actually, using this moment to actually interview. So we have quite a few comments from people. If I may potentially break your flow a little bit there, Alfonso.
Absolutely, yes, of course.
So we've got Javier asking, so better to have remorse than regret. This sounds more conservative. Do you frankly disagree? That's an interesting one. What do you think, Alfonso?
Better to have remorse than regret. Yes, I think if you think about the let me think about this one. But if you think about the I'm losing my words now. The states of mind. I'm losing the technical word, but I'll try to explain it. The level of state of mind. The status of your mind can be in different levels, and I think regret is the least positive one, meaning it's the last in the category. The first one being pride. Regret is really the last one. So I would always try to avoid regret as much as we can in every single thing you do. And and I think I'm not sure if I frankly disagree with that quote. I will have to think about it in more detail.
Sure. It's a good one, isn't it? Okay. Well, coming back to
a very good one.
Coming back to the slide that you were currently on. So the slide on self-belief and possible, right? So is that how you felt when you were, joining your friend's company? Did you feel like very confident about yourself? Or were you confident about the business that you were going in? Was it like a guaranteed success, or did you actually just take a risk without actually believing in it so much? How did it actually play out at the time?
So I think I believed in the vision for sure. It was quite an exciting journey that I was going to get into. I believed in the vision. I believed in the idea. I guess I had to believe in myself more than I did back then. I really didn't think I was able to have people really use your service and really trust you as let's say as a service provider, which is really a service business. So I think I had to build that self-belief, throughout the journey. And again, the way I did it is by following on your goals and having some improvement, whether that is, and again, things that you can control. So improvement within yourself. It could be replying to all your emails on a day. It could be creating that marketing strategy, improving it. So very small things that really create that self-belief. Of course, when you start seeing results, everything is much easier. But you shouldn't really attach your mind to the outcome, but rather to what you're inputting. So instead of seeing the output, really think about the input, what you're giving to the business, and that's the way you build self-belief. And I had an example here, which is from Steve Jobs, right? He obviously is the founder of Apple, which is a very known company and one of the most valuable nowadays. Probably, I think, second next behind Nvidia at the moment. But Apple started in a very small garage. Two founders that had a vision really to, to disrupt the communications industry. And they started in a garage. Now it's a multinational company, which is serving billions of dollars a year. So you can really see how a vision can go so far.
Wow, interesting. Afonso, just want to comment that we're a little bit lacking on time, so we probably have to speed up to have more time for the Q&A towards the end.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So I will end this this part of the presentation just encouraging you to visualize what is possible, to visualize your success. And there is very practical things you can take you can take even today, which is, for example, manifesting. So manifesting, simply take a piece of paper, write down what your life, what you want your life to look like. Be as detailed as possible, because the devil lies in the detail. We all know it. So be as detailed as possible and read it so much so that that dream life actually becomes a reality. You can feel how you would feel if you were living that life. So that's a very that's something that really helped me personally, and I think it could help anyone in the audience. Okay, good. So we're going to talk about the next topic, which is resilience, and I think this is really an important one as well. Sorry, Igor, do you have something to say?
No, just I was looking at the picture in the background. Does that picture have something to do with the topic? Are you basing this this topic on some books that you read or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm using the reference of Stoicism, which is really a philosophy that changed the way I see that I see the world, and obviously I see my business, my personal life, and everything else. So first, let's explain what resilience actually means. So resilience is really bouncing back from a challenge, and that is essential because in any business, in anything you do, you will always incur some setbacks, and you need to build that resilience, and that resilience goes really directly, relates directly to your vision as well. But you really need to build your resilience in order to overcome those setbacks. And I love the way that Stoics look at it, which is, it's a very Stoic picture. I'm not even sure who the philosopher is, but what they teach is certain concepts, and I'll talk about maybe one. I think we don't have time to go into too much detail, but I'll talk about one which is from the philosopher Epictetus. So Epictetus says that some things are up to us and some things are not. What this explains is that you need to really focus on the things you can control. So you cannot control, let's say in a business scenario, you cannot control if a client doesn't want to work with you anymore. What you can control is how do you provide a better service so that the client actually reconsiders his decision. You cannot control the economy, right? Let's say the economy goes through times of boom and bust. So you cannot really control how the economy is going. But you can, for example, prepare for times which will be difficult by, for example, saving some money in the business in the good times for the bad times. And I think the concept of Stoics of control and acceptance, accepting that challenges will come and focusing therefore on everything that you can control, which is your mind, your actions, and your tangible things that you can do today to work towards your goal. So yes, I used it as a reference because I think it really is relevant. It was relevant to me. I used to be always worried about what other people may think, and you need to understand that when you start a business, you might face some pushback from certain people. Let's say your family wants the best for you, right? They always want the best for you, but their idea of what is best for you might be different to what your idea is that is best for you. So you need to understand that you cannot control other people's opinions, but you can control what you're doing and what you are thinking. And that's something very, very important to also build that confidence, is knowing that you are in control of what you can think and what you can do, but not everything else that happens around you. And that applies to business and also to your personal life. So that's why I use this reference. Thanks, Igor, for the question.
No problem at all. I think it's just I would like to take a pause there and actually think about that for a second. So You should accept everything that comes your way that you can't control. At the same time, you should try to expand your area that you can control at all times, and see whether there is actually something you can do about the situation. I think that's very powerful. Yeah, interesting. And I just want to see how it happened to you, Alfonso. So how were you able to actually have that patience, have the ability to neglect the emotions that arose because things were going wrong, and I assume they were going wrong a lot of times when you were starting out on a business journey. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there is also a misconception on controlling your emotions. Instead of controlling your emotions, what I would rather say is, how do you leverage your emotions? Let's talk maybe about anger. How do you leverage anger? Well, you leverage anger by working harder, let's say. You leverage every single emotion that you can experience, you leverage it for your own benefit. Let's say you're feeling sad, well, or you're feeling doubtful. Well, the thing you can do is focus on yourself and do something that will make you feel better. So no one is not subject to those emotional changes. I think maybe just a couple of people really are like that. But I think what we need to do is really, instead of controlling our emotions, is controlling how we act based on our emotions. So that means working even if you're tired. That means working when you're happy, when you're sad, working or following your goals, whatever emotion you're experiencing. So in my journey, and again, this is, I'm not perfect in any way, right? I'm also learning as I go. But for me, stoicism and really accepting that certain things we cannot have control, and therefore we need to let them go. It's not even about accepting them. It's about letting them go, ignoring them, ignoring any other's opinions. In my own experience, for example, I know that certain people around me were not very happy with me starting a business. They thought it was risky. They thought I was going to fail. They thought, and that's fair, because there is a risk involved. But for me, it was always about, how can I build competence and how can I build conviction in my ideas in order to change from risk to actually having a better making a better decision and building the life that you always dreamed of. So it is really a process, and I still have some fear. I still have negative emotions sometimes, but what is important is how you cope with those emotions rather than controlling them. And to this regard, I wanted to just mention just a couple of things that could be useful for the people in the audience in order to practical steps that you can take today in order to to build that resilience. One of them is journaling. So simply writing down, let's say, the challenges that you faced on a certain day, and how you controlled and the lessons you learned from those challenges. Another thing which is incredibly important is gratitude. So how do you stay focused on the positives, even on the tough days, and being grateful for everything that is happening to you, whether that is negative or positive? And I would even go further in saying, the negative things that happen to you, you can be even more grateful of those, because they made you learn even more than the positives. So being grateful for everything that happens to you, whether that is positive or negative. And again, you can do this simply by writing on a piece of paper every single day the things that you're proud of and grateful for. And the third thing, which could be useful as well, is the habit of reflecting on the things that are within your control. So reflecting on the things that you can do today in order to have a better tomorrow. So those are, that's the word of the day. Those are three things that really helped me, and I hope it helps also the people in the audience.
That's great.
Great. So I run through some slides because I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to talk about risk, right, Igor? It's quite an important topic
Huge.
when it comes to business.
Yeah, that's the first thing that people think about, whenever they go into any new venture, be that business or building a house, getting mortgage, whatever it is, right? The first thing you think about is risk, right? So
Absolutely.
how did you deal with that, and how do you suppose that we should in those situations?
Well, very good questions, Igor. Well, the first thing I'll say is, in my opinion, we have a distorted view of risk. The traditional view of risk is, something is going to go wrong. The way I see it is, that is a view based on fear. You can live in two ways. You can live based on fear, or you can live based on love. And when you live based on love, risk becomes an illusion, because you can build competence, you can build conviction, and those two things, will will mean that risk is for, what you might see as risky, someone else might see it as not risky. So here I use the analogy of someone who's climbing, someone who does climbing. I'm not sure if anyone in the audience does mountain climbing or rock climbing. Well, for someone who's done that for 20 years and does it professionally, rock climbing is not risky. For someone who hasn't done it for even once, they see it as a very risky sport, and that's completely normal. But then that means risk is really a perception rather than a reality. It is a perception that is based, again, on competence and conviction. And there's thousands and thousands of examples of entrepreneurs who really took the risk, put everything on the line, and they were successful, right? Maybe Elon Musk is one good example. Tesla was running out of money. They only had $3 million in the bank account. And Elon Musk, chose to pay all his employees their wages, knowing that Tesla would actually succeed in the long term. And of course, they went public. The company was very successful, and that risk paid off. That means that he had a conviction and he had a competence and knowledge that the business made sense. So that's my perception of risk. I'll tell you one more example, and in my personal experience. So at the moment, I'm living in Switzerland. I'm earning good money. I live a good life, comfortable life. My friends are here. I'm close to my family. But I've decided that I'm going to move to Thailand. I'm going to make a move to Thailand. Many people around me, when I made that decision, they kind of discouraged me to do it. They were like, okay, no, it's too risky, Alfonso. Why would you give up everything that you've built, to go into the unknown? And what I think is, for me, it's not a risky decision because I know I have the skills and I have a conviction in my skills, those two things. It is very easy to do. Let's go back to the analogy of the climber. Let's say you trained for many years, you do bouldering indoors, you climb indoors in boulders. So you have the competence, but maybe you don't have the conviction to actually go outside and climb a real mountain. So those are two things that actually come together when it comes to the perception of risk. And what I would like to emphasize in this topic is that you need to take the risk. You need to go ahead and follow your heart, whatever that entails. Because if you have the conviction and you build your competence, it will work out for you. And therefore, here I'm basically advising anyone, if you ever thought about making a move, taking a risk for the life that you dreamed, I really do advise everyone to do it. Even if you're leaving some things, even if you're leaving some things behind, you'll always leave some things behind. But the life that is upon you will be much worth it, in my opinion.
That's great. So how do you handle the risk, Alfonso? So, obviously I kind of asked that question earlier, but can you break it down into atoms? How would you actually, okay, it's great that that risk is in your head and all the rest of it, right? But it's much harder to actually handle it and to have that, level of wiseness at the moment when you actually feel, that there is a great risk and a great potential for a loss of life, of standards of living, of money. So how do you actually handle that?
Yeah, again, for me, it's just a perception. I don't see it as a risky decision. What I see is I'm going to follow my heart, whatever that means, wherever that brings me. So obviously, you need to take calculated risks. I wouldn't tell someone who hasn't, again, the analogy of the climber. I wouldn't put someone who doesn't have any experience into climbing a mountain. That's not how it works. You need to really take calculated risks. So you need to first build a strong basis in order for you to build your mindset and change your mind and say, actually, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to take the leap. I just need to now build more confidence to actually make the move. So for me, the way it worked is, obviously, I've built, in these last couple of years, a strong basis and competence in certain fields that allows me to have that freedom of mind and saying, okay, I'm going to follow my dreams. I'm ready now to do it. You need to take calculated risks. It's not good, for example, to do something that will completely destroy your life for a potential return which is completely unknown and unclear. But it does make sense when it is something you want to pursue and you work towards it to actually take the leap of faith and make that move. So again, you really need to build yourself first, It is a process, but once you build that process, my advice is to take the risk and go ahead and follow your dreams. I hope that answered your question, Igor.
It does. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Okay, good. So one of the topics in this presentation was obviously how to overcome the fear of failure. And again, I want to reiterate that this is something we all experience at any point in our lives, and I still have sometimes, this fear of failure. What if it doesn't work? And what I think is the most important thing here is you need to reframe what failure means. Since, and I'll tell you my own experience. Since we're young, we're somewhat educated in the way that failure is a negative thing. For example, at school, you had these multiple choice tests, and if you answered one correctly, you got a point. If you didn't answer one correctly, if you chose to not answer a question, you got a 0. So basically, you don't get a negative or a positive point. But if you answered a question incorrectly, you actually get penalized for it. So what is that really showing you is you're being penalized to fail. So people give up on trying. They don't try to fail because failure is seen as a negative thing. And that is, I understand maybe that's how the educational system works. But for me, when it comes to your life, you actually learn from your failures. In fact, that is the only way you can learn. You can learn much more from failures than you do from successes. And I wanted to reference one very interesting and interesting book, which is Mindset from, I believe it's, what's the name? I'm missing the name of the person now. But anyway, so what this book actually talks about is that, and I'll find the person later and I'll tell you. Yeah, so what this book really explains is you need to reframe what failure means.
Sorry, was that Stoicism, right?
No, this is a book, Mindset. I'm missing the person, but I'll look for it real quick.
No worries, no worries.
But
So we can come back to it later.
It's not important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what this book really explains is that you need to reframe what failure means. Failure can either be seen as you're not good enough, or you're not capable, or you don't have the ability to do something. Or you can actually see it as something positive, as something that will actually help you learn, and you can take failure as a lesson. So this book really distinguishes between two different types of mindset. One is a fixed mindset, and the other one is a growth mindset. Okay, Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck is the person who wrote this book.
Oh.
So yeah, there you go. I remembered the name. So in essence, a fixed mindset is a mindset which only focuses on, am I capable to do something or not? And a growth mindset is someone who is able to learn from the mistakes, because you're not either good or bad. What you are is you're constantly learning, and you're learning from mistakes. So those are two different ways of looking at your mindset. And I asked the audience, do you think you have a fixed or a growth mindset? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But obviously, my recommendation is to work towards a growth mindset, because then you can change the way failure actually means. Why are we actually scared to fail? And this is a very deep-rooted question. And I think, as I said, one is because we're, in a way, taught to think this way since we're young. But another obvious reason is because we're scared of what people may think about you when you fail. You have the fear of judgment from other people. And when you release that fear of judgment, it's not that you don't care what people think, but you care again about what you do and what you think, whether that is positive or negative, but you think really about what you care and not what other people care. So when you release that fear of judgment, then the limits are endless, because then it's not that you're not scared to fail anymore, but you see failure as completely different, and you're ready to take a punt, you're ready to take the risk, and that is really going to change your life. So that's it.
Great.
Again, I encourage everyone to see any setback as a valuable experience and part of the journey to success. And again, it's very important also to define what failure or success means. So before telling yourself that you failed, think about exactly what failure means. Does it mean you didn't get to a certain profit margin on your business, or a specific number or portfolio of clients. You need to define what success and failure means. And I want to again just quickly reiterate what I said at the beginning of this session, which is you don't actually fail until you give up. And if you have the mind of never giving up, therefore you can never fail.
Great. So,
Do
Alfonso,
people
I
have
think
questions in the audience?
yeah, are we approaching towards the end of the presentation? I think we have a few slides left, don't we?
Yes, I'm going to run through them very quickly. But does anyone have any questions? I wanted to just take some time also to see what people are thinking about it.
So there was one question that I was going to save until the end. I think it's a great one, again from Ludmila. Well, as an interior designer, says Ludmila, I work in a company and want to do it step by step from a designer to a lead designer and art director to understand the whole process, because it is really different from position person has. So I'm guessing that what she talks about is back when you were discussing kind of jumping from one side of the canyon to another, taking that step by step. So, perhaps jump from, through a smaller canyon before actually coming to a bigger one. So what are your thoughts on that, by the way? Should you be more realistic about the kind of the goals you set for yourself, the canyons you want to jump, or should you just go for the biggest one? I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't like the word realistic. I think the reality is really something is really personal thing. You can really picture it in there is really no limits to what you can achieve. Again, I go back to my initial quote. So you can really make any reality a reality. So what I would tell Ludmila is that I think it's a very natural transition what she is doing. If she's using her current experience to then use it for her business, I think there is not better a transition than that. And I think it's a fantastic project that she's embarking on, and I wish her all the luck. And I think it's really great to follow different paths. Some people prefer to, again, give up everything they have and follow that dream, and some people prefer a more conservative transition. And I think both options are perfectly fine and acceptable. So I'm sure, again, Ludmila, and I want to talk to you directly. So if you think what you're doing is the right decision, and if you don't have any regret, therefore, if that's the case, then I think you're on the right path, and I wish you all the luck.
Great. I just wanted to push you on that topic a little bit longer, Alfonso. Just something that actually I came across. So in Business Book Club, also as part of the IMC regular events that we have here, we were actually reading and discussing a book by Stephen Schwarzman, What It Takes, and he was talking about. So he's the founder of Blackstone, and he was saying that in fact you should actually go for the bigger goal. And the reason why is because if you go for the bigger goal, you can then break it down into smaller ones, which are more achievable. Whilst if you go for a smaller kind of goal, which is more realistic, achievable, it's harder for it to be broken down. So you're not going to have any intermediary results, and you're actually going to make yourself less interested in a process, and you'll have less fulfillment. I mean, this kind of pushes back this concept. What do you think about that? Does that do you agree with that statement, or would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I do agree, of course, to an extent. I think it was, I might know a lot of things about Elon Musk, but I remember him saying that something you can do, let's say you put yourself a goal and you want to achieve it in 2 years. What if you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to achieve this goal in 6 months? If you put yourself in that position, you will find a way to, maybe you're not going to do it in 6 months, but instead of 2 years, you might actually do it in 1 year. So that is a bit the same relatable idea to what you're saying. And I fully agree with you. I think you should always go for what is the bigger goal, which you can then, break down into specific steps and an action plan. So absolutely, yes. I think that's a very interesting. I haven't read that book, I must be honest, but I'll probably read it after this. And I know this person is really interesting. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so
So
do you want to come back to the flow with a couple of slides left?
yeah, well, I'm going to go very quickly, but there is a book really that I think everyone should read, which is Atomic Habits. And okay, we talked about vision, we talked about resilience, we talked about risk, but you need to have consistency over time, and that consistency can really can be broken down into very simple steps that you take every single day for a very long period of time, and those small actions will compound over time. And that's why this quote, small consistent actions can lead to massive outcomes over time. And I think this book summarizes a bit everything that we're discussing in this presentation, because first of all, an action plan and can really the vision guides the action plan. Second of all, if you take small actions and you reward yourself for those actions, then you will build resilience. And third of all, when you see that you're growing, then you're better able to take risks. So for me, ending this presentation, I think Atomic Habits is something that is, that teaches very important things about business, how to think long term, but focus on the specific actions you can take today for that long term vision. And yeah, I encourage everyone to, to build those daily habits. Mind leads to action, action leads to habits, habits lead to lifestyle. And you want to get to a point where you are living the lifestyle that you want based on the habits that that you're implementing in your life. So I think that's a great way to summarize a bit everything we're discussing. But it really allows you also, again, I don't want people to be confused. You can take small actions today, but that doesn't mean you don't have a long-term vision. You don't have a long-term mindset, because in business, as in everything you do, you need to have that long-term vision for the journey. But you can break down that journey into, specific measurable steps you can take today and compound them over time. Let's say you want to, okay, let's talk maybe about, you want to be healthier, you want to build, a better body. Well, you won't build the dream body in just a couple of months. You will build it throughout the years if every single week you go to the gym. Same thing with business. You will not be a multi-million-dollar business unless you're very lucky. You will not make it in 2-3 weeks. You will make it throughout the years, improving throughout your journey. So I encourage everyone to build those habits and have a clear action plan, which you can action on today already. And I think Atomic Habits is a great example.
That's great, Alfonso. So Alfonso, just to kind of recap, the things that we discussed here today, right? As we, streaming towards the end. So obviously today we were discussing about the mindset that one should have, to go into a business. But I guess, and you would probably agree with me, this is not just about having a mindset for business, a mindset for anything that is of value, right? You should have that kind of mindset. And the things that you discussed today were resilience. You discussed having a vision, and then basically understanding the risks, right? So what I wanted to ask you, right, is that those things are great, right? But how would one actually go about it, right? How would do you break it down? Should you, obviously you mentioned some things that one can do, which is like scheduling and things like that, but maybe you have some advice, some personal advice about a person who's about to go into something new. Could be a new business, could be a new job, a new promotion, and you moving into a new city. What general advice, more down to earth advice, would you give that person to have those things that you discuss here today and to actually implement them correctly into one's mind?
Yeah, great question. I always think it always comes down to the person. So a good business is only as good as the person that is behind it. So that is why this session is so important, because mindset really is everything. Your mindset will impact on your personal life, it will impact on your business. So for anyone who wants to take the leap of faith and follow those goals, even if you might think they're unachievable, I would take a step back and actually think about yourself first. Who you are as a person. What kind of skills can you build? What mindset can you develop before you even start a business, you need to think about who you are as a person. How you are you improving yourself? Are you working on yourself? And that is both health, that is a mental, that is knowledge, that is a lot of things. So I would always, if I were to advise that person on that journey, I would say, first of all, work on yourself. Again, live a healthy life, work hard, build your mindset, build your resilience, have a vision, do those things that I said, building, for example, journaling, creating like a manifesting guide, really writing very specific goals that you want to achieve, and then simply working towards it is not as difficult as people want to put it. Of course, you will always have setbacks and challenges, but again, if you only focus on what you can control, long term, it will normally work out if you don't give up. So
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Well, yeah, that was actually a question from Michael. So I hope that Michael, we answered your question. Michael was asking about the steps, and I kind of linked it back to the topic. And I think that was a great question to wrap up the session. Just if you can add on something within a line, what would be one advice you would tell yourself, back in the day when you were actually starting out on this new venture, and to Michael and anyone else who's about to go into their own business, what would be like the one sentence advice you would give them before they start?
Yeah, well, I think my last slide, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but
No,
it really
demo.
is about never giving up. So never giving up. Whatever happens, whatever comes your way, is never giving up. Whatever people might think, whatever setback you might experience, you need to understand that you don't need to know everything about business when you start. In fact, many people who are very successful, they are still learning, and it's still a learning journey. But the one thing they all have in common is that whatever happened in their lives, they never give up. The business must probably not succeed in the first couple of months, Michael. But if you keep trying and you decide to use those small failures as a learning lesson, as a way to improve yourself, then you can never fail, because you can never give up. So that's something that, and it's a very simple idea. And I know many people talk about it, and it's, okay, never giving up. It's so simple to say, but it really is just that. It really is having the mindset where whatever happens, whatever comes your way, you will find a way to get through it. And if you have that mindset, you will never fail. You just cannot fail. So that's the line I would say: never give up.
Great. Alfonso, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you everyone for joining. And I hope to see you all on Friday, where we're going to have a continuation of Global Entrepreneurship Week, right? And we're going to be discussing the history of Silicon Valley, okay? So thank you so much, and wish you all a great evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. See you.